If you want to detect and monitor the degradation of forests, map deforestation, and track ecosystem restoration projects and initiatives, you need to know what's happening on the ground, also using satellite imagery. But until recently, it wasn't easy to handle the data. FAO has a new platform that makes it all simpler, CEPAL. CEPAL is a free and open-source cloud computing platform accessible from any computer, laptop, or smartphone. Connecting with existing sources of satellite imagery or remotely sensed data that previously required a large computer and expensive software licenses to be processed. CEPAL allows users to create and analyze data from any place on Earth for free. It can be used to generate and improve land use maps, analyze time series, run detection and perform accuracy assessment and area assessment, all key tasks in the context of forest protection, sustainable production, and restoration. Developed in collaboration with many, including the World Bank and NASA, and with financial support from the Government of Norway, CEPAL currently has more than 8,500 users from more than 180 countries, and it's been proving its value. Government agencies, private institutions, NGOs, academics, and researchers are all active users of CEPAL, but the platform is open to anyone, with an entire world of land data just 3 clicks away.
Forests are vital to life. They play a central role in combating climate change by absorbing and storing carbon from the atmosphere in their vegetation and soils. Climate change and other mounting pressures on forests make their monitoring critical. We need accurate, reliable, and transparent data to better understand the potential of forests for climate action and to make the right decisions to protect and sustainably manage forests. The Paris Agreement is a milestone in global efforts to limit climate change under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Under this agreement, countries report on their climate actions, including the protection of forest resources. This work is guided under the Enhanced Transparency Framework, designed to promote transparency and mutual trust between countries by encouraging information sharing. To collect, analyse and disseminate forest-related data, countries have put in place National Forest Monitoring System from which data and information are derived and used for policymaking. FAO has been supporting the efforts of over 50 countries to strengthen their national forest monitoring systems. National forest monitoring systems and the Enhanced Transparency Framework complement each other to make information more transparent, accurate, consistent, complete, and comparable over time. This cannot exist without competencies, resources, and an appropriate legislative and institutional framework. FAO, the Global Environment Facility, governments, and many other partners work together to improve forest data. You can learn more about the role of forest data in the battle against climate change in an FAO e-learning course, Forests and Transparency under the Paris Agreement. Transparent data is essential to sustainably manage, use, and protect the world's forests. Together, we can build a better future for our world, the future we want. It is widely acknowledged that forests are important for people and climate, and that forest data is essential for evidence-based and effective policy and decision-making. But how does forest data get collected and transformed into forest information and actions? Remote sensing technologies are advancing rapidly, but satellite-based forest data still can't replace on-the-ground measurements that countries gather through National Forest Inventories, or NFIs. NFIs are systematic collections of data that help countries reply to questions like, what is the extent of our forests? How are forests changing and why? What are the uses of forests? And who are the users? To complement the existing training activities and to make NFI information more accessible, FAO has launched a set of free, easy-to-use online training modules on NFIs. These modules provide users with a detailed introduction to NFIs and highlight the importance of forest data management for forest and climate positive policies. With relevant links to reference material and real-world examples from a variety of countries, the modules are interactive and accessible to anyone, anywhere, and at any time.
The destruction of forests hurt people and the planet, while restoring these landscapes offer profound benefits: storing carbon, improving biodiversity, purifying water and air, buffering against floods and extreme weather, and providing people with food and other resources. The restoration of degraded forests presents an unprecedented opportunity to improve the lives and livelihoods of people around the world. A new planning tool from the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations helps countries and restoration actors grasp that opportunity. The tool is adaptive, customizable, and open source. The Restoration Planning module will be integrated inside the CEPAL dashboard as an application. This application will look like a website and will be separated into 4 computation steps and 2 result steps. In the first step, you will be asked to select an area of interest for your study that will be used inside the module. 2 possible options are available. The first is to use administrative layers, and the second is to use custom geometries. Once the boundary is selected, you can move to the questionnaire. The questionnaire is split into 2 steps: constraints and restoration priorities. Constraints are a set of criteria that can be activated or deactivated by selecting them inside the drop-down menu. Some constraints allow to mask a range of values, while others are binary. The restoration priorities can be selected using a standard priority questionnaire, which allows you to rank your priorities by importance. Once you've answered all the questions, the module will evaluate all the layer weight values, which will be applied to create the results for the restoration dashboard. In the following table, we'll find all of the layers that will be used to compute the restoration dashboard and the associated weights. Users remain in complete control of the software and can manually modify every layer definition. Clicking on the Action button will open a pop-up window displaying a description of the layer and the option to change that layer that will be used for this theme. This layer will be checked for compatibility with the rest of the application. If it's not compatible, the default layer will be used. Once modifications are set, you can click on the Save button or Cancel to use the default layer. The recipe section allows a user to load the weights from a previously saved model or use the weights from the questionnaire. Clicking the Validation button will display information about the computation to make it clear what information the program is using to run the calculations. The result map below indicates priority areas of restoration based on your specific ranking of restoration objectives, constraints, and risks. Areas in the map in blue indicate a higher return on investment, while areas mapped in red indicate a lower return with regards to your objective. The map could show, for instance, the precise areas where restoring forest would yield the largest potential increases in carbon storage, food positioning, or flood control, relative to the costs and risks. This indicator of restoration potential is prioritized based on your ranking of expected benefits. It represents the ratio of the weighted sum of benefits divided by costs. Costs include both priority and establishment costs. Comparing the relative magnitude of this indicator across space and between sites can help identify which sites offer a high return on investment and which ones offer a low return. Investigate the restoration suitability map to identify some areas that seem promising for planning restoration activities. Once you've identified these regions, you can draw a boundary box around them to run summary statistics for comparison. Presented statistics include a detailed analysis of the estimated benefits, costs, and risks. This information can help you assess trade-offs and restoration priorities between regions of interest. Forest restoration is complex and requires that decision makers consider a multitude of factors when deciding where to pursue restoration interventions. Decisions include where to restore and which areas hold the highest chances of success. These complex choices require the consideration of a number of biophysical and socioeconomic factors. This tool provides a medium to quantify user priorities and help them better understand how restoration interventions will help achieve their goals.
Monitoring peatlands worldwide is essential at a time when we're starting to discuss ways in which we can mitigate climate change. What we need to know in terms of peatlands globally is where they are located, in particular the boundaries of the peatlands. And once we know where our peatlands are located, then the next thing we need to know is their depth. And it's perhaps surprising that we still don't have good information on where they are and also how deep our peatlands are. If we combine area information with depth information, then we can start to calculate the carbon stocks in our peatlands. Once we've done that, we then need to move forward to think about the condition of the peatlands. Are they acting still as carbon sinks? So they're accumulating carbon from the atmosphere, or are they now acting as carbon sources to the atmosphere, perhaps because of land use change and other forms of degradation? If we can identify areas needing restoration, then we can start to move forward to put into place actions to re-wet those peatlands.
Currently, The drained peatlands of the world that have been artificially drained by human beings are responsible for 5% of all anthropogenic greenhouse gas emissions. So if we want to reach the zero emissions, as has been agreed in the Paris Agreement, we have to re-wet peatlands. Some countries more. In some countries, peatlands are responsible for 30–40% of the emissions, and in other countries less. But in average, 5% of all emissions come from peatlands. The monitoring of peatlands is important for several reasons. First, we have to keep an eye on that the situation is not getting worse, so that no new drainage take place. Secondly, we have to re-wet these areas. So we have to monitor to what extent they are getting wetter as a result of our activities. And third, we have to take care that these re-wettings are happening quickly to reach the goals of the Paris Agreement. So also that we have to observe.